Hello again, I'm the chairman of Tram 53 and I'm going to explain to you how a tram works today. So we're going to start with the truck, and this is this thing in front of us. This is what the tram sits on. There are two big electric motors that go there, you can see the teeth for them, and basically this carries the tram along and also carries the motors that propel it. It has a braking system, it has brakes that will go on the wheels which are dismantled, and you have a thing here called the track brake which presses down upon the actual track and is used to slow the tram down. So the technology here, well, this is a British truck, it's a Mallet and Taunton. It's similar to what 53 had, not the same, but they're very similar technology. You have a leaf spring, you would have coiled springs in the middle, and you can see it's very much cast metal work. This is the controller. You have one at each end of the tram because, as you know, a tram is double-ended, and basically you have a lever on this, and this controls the flow of electricity into the motors. So in other words, the more notches you take off, or resistors as they're called, the faster the tram will go. So there'll be one of these at each end. These need a lot of work at the moment. Apparently they're in quite good condition. The next thing to point out, this is in the workshop, these are parts of the brake cylinder. This goes underneath, and that is your main brake cylinder. There's part of it there as well, which is being restored. It's an original one, I believe, made by Westinghouse. Further along on the bench we have the regulator here. Now this is for the compressor, which I'll speak about in a moment, but this device monitors the air pressure, and when the air pressure drops in the braking system it turns the compressor on. The next item is the contact breakers, which are here, and these are mounted on each end of the cab, and these are like a big breaker. Basically if there's too much electricity and overcharge, if you like, these things click off, and you can see the mechanism in there. They're being restored at the moment, that it should be ready for use pretty soon as such. Apart from that, we have some bits of seats here which is not electrics. So the next thing I'd like to point out over there is the compressor. And the reason for the compressor is that it supplies the air for the air brakes. On a tram you originally had a handbrake, you had a big crank which turned a cogwheel which turned a chain. By the 1930s, when 53 was built, the Board of Trade said you had to have air brakes. So the big compressor there would supply air to a big cylinder, and the air brakes would be on the wheels and also the track. In addition to that, it also supplied compressed air to push sand onto the track, because you had sand obviously to grip when it was rainy and snowy, that sort of thing. So the compressor does a very important job with the tram, and certainly for the age of 53, which was the late 30s tram, it was the law, you had to have it. Okay, to actually drive a tram, you have to use your imagination. This would be the handbrake, which you turn, it has a ratchet on, etc. That's your first line of defence. I spoke about the controllers earlier. They would sit here. So you'd stand there with your hand on the brake there and the controller. You'd also have the air brake mechanism here, and what we have got are the two dials. So they mount there and there, and they give you your air pressure to make sure the system's working. You have two levers here which do the different brakes, and you drive the tram simply by doing that. Underneath the stairs, which will go here, you have a resistor box, which is where the mains electricity comes in and it gets fed out to the various components. At the other end you have the big air compressor you saw earlier, which supplies all the power for the air braking. This is one of the upstairs seats. Now if you remember, Tram 53 is an opened top tram, it doesn't have a roof. So these have to be weatherproof seats, which is why they're made of wood and have been heavily varnished. We've just put the first one together here. It's a double seat, as you can see. You can have two people sitting on it. And because the tram changes direction, it goes and can swap the direction you're travelling in. I've seen on some trams, if you had a party of people, two of these together, they'd have the seats opposite so they could talk. So that's very nice. This was part of the open day we had very recently. We had a lot of people come along. We raised over £500, which is a very good sum. And it was lovely to show our work around to various people who'd heard about the project but not actually seen it. Right, today we have put on a metal finishing strip on the side of the tram. Steve has tested the light bulbs inside the lower saloon to make sure they work and the circuit's working. And Louis has painted some more of the seat parts, which is really good. So it's been another very useful day at 53. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.
85. Ah, that keep going. 25. Why did it jump to? That's the lowest resistant bulb to earth. I was just testing it. Oh. It's all right. It's only 500 volts.
That inspires confidence, doesn't it? Right?